Why these megacities are still empty. Imagine living in one of these urban developments. This urbanization of the future could save you much time and resources with its upcoming. Imagine being able to go to work with no traffic, or not waste time in long lines, like at the supermarkets or the DMV. Weird, right? Well, not for these metropolitan wonders. These largest cities by metropolitan areas is what they call it, but to us, it seems like an urbanization documentary. You decide for yourself what you think about these urban developments and let us know in the comments below. So, let's take a look at these metropolitan wonders with a little bit of historic preservation and what AI has to do with these cities. Sejong, a city made to combat the uneven economic growth in the country and the congested capital city of Seoul, South Korea. Seoul, like many metropolitan areas, is overcrowded with about 25 million people. That's 3 times as much as the United States' most populated city, New York. Because of this large number of people in a secluded area, construction on Sejong began in 2007. 5 years later, the government agencies would move from the crowded Seoul to the new and improved capital of Sejong, which was only 125 kilometers away, or 78 miles. However, the plan did not go as thought of. The plan was to bring all the government agencies to relocate in 2012. However, in 2023, a little less than half have actually moved to Sejong. This city of the future has been created with self-sufficient needs and lots of ample provisions for electric vehicles and green spaces, much like Tolosa. So wait until the end of the video to check that out. There is also smart tech, like automation waste collection and interactive digital signage. Even with all of these wonderful urban developments, many speculate that the insufficient transportation links is what is driving people away from Sejong, unlike the Go City, which we will mention next. This smart city only holds about 400,000 people compared to Seoul's 25 million, but maybe with the development of new future innovations like AI, rising real estate prices, and heavier traffic continuing, then it is expected for more people to look outside of Seoul. The population is expected to reach 500,000 by 2030 and continue to climb after. Naypyidaw. This new capital city, completed only 11 years ago in 2012, is the 3rd largest city in Myanmar. This city is known as the city with everything but people, and is why it is nicknamed the Ghost Capital. Naypyidaw was built for the overcrowded population of Yangon. However, some evidence points to a strategic military move for the country. For example, the construction of the city was kept a secret, while over 25 construction companies had to keep quiet while building the city for approximately $5 billion. A few years after beginning, the government announced that the capital headquarters would be moved to Naypyidaw in 2005, which barely anyone heard about. But there is a lot more, so stay tuned to see what more the city has to offer. The location of Naypyidaw seems to be strange, with it being remote with poor access to the sea, which makes it difficult for enemies to invade. The road system is also laid out inconveniently, which makes it difficult to travel across the city. There is even a 20-lane highway that can serve as a runway for aircrafts. Before Naypyidaw, the surrounding areas were difficult to control by the government. However, this new city is a lot easier to control, and yet another reason why the city is believed to originally be made for tactical use. The plan was to have a population of 9 million by the mid-2010s, however there is only about 750,000 today. There is now a 6% population increase, however it is nothing like Nusantara. Nusantara has been in the talks since the 1950s in Indonesia and was left at that for 70 years. Finally, in January 2022, the parliament signed a bill to relocate the capital to over 2,000 kilometers away, or 1,242 miles away, and on a whole different island. Now the question comes to be, why would the government finally, after 70 years, put the money and effort to move the capital? Well, there are many factors into this question, so let's dive in. Jakarta, the original capital, had a huge overcrowding and pollution problem, which is already a big enough problem to decide to move the capital. However, other issues arose recently, like rise in sea levels. This newly fast-sinking city has sunk 2 meters in the span of 10 years and is expected to be 25% underwater by 2050. On the other hand, this climate change has also brought extreme weather events and led to flash flooding from the upriver and sea, and just wait until you see what happens in Egypt. There have been a few houses lost to the sea, despite a fight back with the construction of a 47-kilometer seawall along the sinking shoreline, and one of the main reasons why the threshold was made for Nusantara to finally be approved. The new city of Nusantara, when fully completed, will be 3 times the size of New York, which is currently a rainforest. This location was chosen because there is more geographically central and culturally representative of Indonesia than Jakarta does. This location also has a much lower incidence rate of natural disasters, and with all these bonuses for the city of Nusantara, there is a 5-stage plan for final completion. Stage 1 began with a ceremonial spade of the earth in August 2022 and is expected to be fully completed through Stage 5 in 2045 with a $32 billion project budget, and where 40% of which will be private investment. Egypt's new administrative capital. This new capital is currently under construction as a project just 80 kilometers or 50 miles east of the current capital, Cairo. When the new capital is completed, there would be enough housing for 6.5 million people, or 70% of Cairo's population. This new city currently remains empty today, however, the first individuals are expected to move in by the end of 2023. As you may have noticed, we didn't mention a name, and that's because there isn't one. Unlike Tolosa, which is a new megacity coming to the southwest of the United States, so stay tuned for that next. Coming back to Egypt, it may come as a surprise to you that the government has announced a competition to come up with the name and logo for the new administrative capital. Interesting concept for deciding a name if you ask us, but creative indeed. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is Egypt even building this massive city? To answer that question, we must come back to Cairo. Cairo currently is home to 10 million people, and the area surrounding houses around 21 million people. Even with these astonishing numbers, it is still expected to rise to nearly 40 million by 2050. There was finally a decision in 2014 to start plans for a new megacity that will be able to alleviate the overcrowding of Cairo and is currently under construction today. The new and improved capital will feature an international airport, a stadium and leisure district, a monorail to Cairo, and impressive mosques and churches. It even is home to the iconic tower, which is now the tallest skyscraper in Africa, but won't hold this title for long, with taller and new sophisticated skyscrapers being built currently. This new skyscraper will be called Obelisko Capital and will reach an unimaginable height of 1 kilometer and make it the tallest building in the world, surpassing today's king of the skyscrapers, the Burj Khalifa, which stands at 828 meters. The new Obelisko Capital will be 173 meters taller than the Burj Khalifa, or 516 feet taller. With these incredible creations to come, there are a few skeptics on the financial and social impact this new wonder city will have. There are concerns that the financial ties and dependence on China for this new megacity could become an exclusive city for the wealthy Egyptians only. This could follow with a lack of business and investment for Cairo, which could lead to growing poverty and overpopulation in Cairo. There is no doubt that this city is rising up. However, the impact that it will have still remains a mystery, and we must wait and see. Before we move on to our final megacity, go ahead and click that subscribe button on the corner of your screen for more upcoming videos like this one. Tolosa, the city of purpose. Finally, we shift back to North America to share with you the new utopian city of Tolosa. Tolosa will be located in the southwest United States and is projected to populate 5 million people by 2050. The project was announced in September of 2021 and was conceived by former president of Walmart, Mark Lore. Tolosa is planned to be a 15-minute city, and you may be wondering, well, what is a 15-minute city? The idea of the 15-minute city is that workplaces, schools, and all basic goods and service will be within a 15-minute commute from a resident's home without vehicles powered by fossil fuels. All vehicles that are powered by fossil fuels will not be permitted in the city, and emphasis will be placed on walking, scooters, bicycles, and autonomous electrical vehicles. There will also be a massive skyscraper called the Yekaterinburg Tower that will be the beacon of the city. The skyscraper will include water storage, aeroponic farms, and a photovoltaic roof. Like Las Vegas, this will be the city of the desert, except instead of a vacation city, it will be more of a luxurious city of the future, a city to call a home, a city of purpose. Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video and would like more like this, go ahead and hit that like button and consider checking out this video right here for more amazing content for you to keep on growing. See you again soon.